The calves kind of had a delayed bawling reaction. I'm not exactly sure why, but usually that first day that they're on a farm, they usually start bawling. But these calves they didn't start bawling until today, and it's been 24 hours. I'm not exactly sure what happened, and so I had kind of a delayed reaction with the bawling this time. And that might be due to the fact that, the animals may have legitimately just been pulled off the mama cow and taken directly to the cell barn, like within 30 minutes, right? It might have happened. Or sometimes when these animals are at the cell barn, what'll actually happen is that the mama cow and the baby cow will be, or the baby calf will be separated. If the mama cow has something wrong with her, right? If the mama cow has something wrong, if the mama cow is too old, right? If the mama cow has something going on with her, and the cell barn thinks that the mama cow needs to be separated, they'll actually separate the calf at the cell barn. And so I'm thinking that that's probably what happened. The calf probably got separated at the cell barn or right before it went to the cell barn. And I've been having a delayed bawling reaction. But the bawling reaction is not too bad. All right, these calves are not they're not horrendously freaking out. Sometimes, like when these calves, when they start bawling, I mean it's real bad. But it's not too bad. It's not too bad. They are bawling, but it was kind of a delayed reaction. And the animal with that I was pretty certain was coming down with some kind of a BRD. She had a bunch of nasty gunk coming out of one side of her nose, and you can hear the calves bawling. You can hear the calves bawling. And that one animal, that Hereford heifer that I have, that had a nasty gunk coming out of one side of her nose, it was pretty bad. She's about 75% better. The nasty gunk coming out of her nose has cleared up. It's turned clear, so she's not she doesn't have a whole bunch of of gunk coming out of one side of her nose anymore. She's got her head up, and she's looking like she's doing about 85% better. And so that shot of macrocin, whatever it was that she had going on, it cleared it up. So that's very fortunate. The animals, they all look like they're doing okay. They're all eating the feed. I do have the animals are bawling, but they are eating the feed. All right, they are eating the feed. And so, okay, I figured, well, right now, here's what's going to happen, okay? Here's what I got cooking up. So I have 16 animals in the front, and I have, I have 17 animals in the front, and then I have 21 animals in the back. And so the big idea right now is that I don't want to take these big animals to the lease property. I don't want to take the big animals to the lease property, because if I take these giant animals to the lease property, I will have to catch them all again within 2 months. All right, I'll have to catch them all again within 2 months, and I don't really feel like doing that. All right, I don't really feel like doing that. And so what I'm gonna do, and I believe that this will make the business work. This will make the business function better. Is that I have about 10 out of the 17 calves in the front yard. About 10 of them are about somewhere around 350 pounds. All right, they are about 350 pounds. And so that leaves me with 7, right? And so what I'll do is I'll take the 10 animals that are about 350 pounds, and I will take them to the lease property. I'll set up a water tank over there. And the thing about these animals, and just to put things just to clarify things a little bit more, is that these animals in the front yard, they eat about the 17 of them eat about 3 or 4 buckets of feed a day. They'll eat about 3 or 4 buckets. And so if I take 10 animals over there, they'll only eat 2 or 3 buckets of feed a day. And so, I mean, I figured, I could just, if I go over there once or twice a week, and I just, I put a couple of water containers on a trailer, and I just drag it over there, and I just leave it out there. And I just dump about 20 buckets of feed into I dump about 15 buckets of feed into a couple of feed troughs for them. That'll effectively be enough food for them to eat the entire week. And it'll probably be enough water for them to drink the entire week too. The big problem with water, I talk about, this is one of the big problems with my area. One of the big problems is that we don't have groundwater, and when the weather gets hot and there's no rain, the water will rot, right? I mean, this is one of the biggest issues that we have in this area, is that the water will rot. All right, if it's hot outside and there's no rain, the water will legitimately rot, and the animals cannot drink it. And so unless there's like some kind of a rain or some kind of a creek that runs through the pond, or the pond gets recycled, the water gets cycled out, the water will stagnate and the water will rot. And so I got to set up a couple of water tanks. And so I figured what I will do is I will take 10 animals from the front yard. I will take the 10 biggest animals in the front yard. I will put them on the lease property. I'll set them up a couple of water tanks, maybe about 500 gallons of water, 550 gallons of water. 550 gallons of water will be enough water to last them the entire week, maybe more. And I'm just going to leave the water tanks out there for them to drink out of if they want to. And they can drink out of the pond if they want to, but I would prefer that they not drink out of the pond. But if they do, I mean, I'm not going to, what am I going to do? Tell the cows to not drink out of the pond? Like, even the pond water over here right now is nasty. The pond water that the animals got over here right now, it's nasty. The water's no good. It's poo-poo water. And so I'll set up a couple of water tanks. I'll take the 10 animals in the front to the lease property. And then I will bring in some new calves. I will bring in some new calves, 3 or 4 new calves. And then, that will make the, that I have 17 in the front yard. So I take the 10, that leaves me with 7. I put another 3 or 4 in there. That's another 10 or 11 calves. And when those 10 or 11 calves are effectively ready to go, when they've been preconditioned, right, and they've all been stabilized and preconditioned, they're all effectively good to go, I will then take those animals to the lease property as well. So that will leave me with 20 animals at the lease property, and then 20 animals here. And the big picture idea is to get myself to 60 animals. All right, when I run my farm at about 50 animals, at a time, when I run my farm 50 animals at a time, about 150, 200 cattle a year, I make about 400,000, I make about $40,000 a month. And so I'm gonna push myself to 60, and I think I can do that within 2 months. I think I can get myself to 60 within 2 months. And so and with everything going on, okay, because here's the thing, I think I can get myself to about 60 within 2 months, but even then, I'm not really even going to be pushing myself. And here's the thing, for me to, I'm gonna be completely honest about it. I haven't really split my chops open in like a year. I don't, like, if I split my chops open, how far do I get? I don't know. I haven't tried in like a year. I mean, I would think that I can at least run 1,000. I would think that I can at least run 1,000. I may be able to do more than that. All right, I may be able to do more than 1,000 a year. I haven't split my chops open in probably over a year. I haven't really split my chops open. I haven't really pushed myself. I haven't really pushed myself in about a year, maybe a little bit longer, a year and a half. I haven't really pushed myself with I haven't split my chops open. I don't know how far I'll go. I don't know, if I legitimately push myself as hard as I can, as hard as I can, if I push myself, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. All right, I may end up running 1,000 head of cattle. I may end up running more than 1,000 head of cattle. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And so, but realistically, even getting to 60 within the next 2 months is not going to be difficult. It is not going to be difficult. I have a realistic strategy for how I will do it. I will leave these animals here, okay? I will leave these big animals here. I don't really want to, put them on the lease property and then have to catch them all again within 2 months. What I will do is take 10 out of the 17 animals in the front yard. I will take them to the lease property. The animals that weigh about 350 pounds, I will take them to the lease property. They will be on the lease property for about 5 or 6 months. I'll set up a couple of water containers and I'll just dump out enough feed for them to eat for the entire week. That will leave me with 7 animals here, as long as it doesn't rain, right? The whole thing about it right now is that we're probably not going to get much rain at all for about the next month and a half, all right? Whatever little bit of rain that we were going to get this month, we probably already got it, and we're probably not going to get any more rain, all right? And if it does rain, I'll keep an eye on it. And if it does rain, if anything, it's going to be blazing hot, okay? It's about to start getting blazing hot. Here within about a week or 2, it's going to get blazing hot. And we probably won't have any rain for about a month or 2, okay? And so, you know, if I dump out enough feed for them to eat the entire week, it's probably not going to get wet. It's probably not going to go bad or anything. I can just leave it out there for them, and I can leave them a couple of water containers for them to drink out of. And then I will bring home another 3 or 4 cattle. That will put another 10 cattle in the back. And then once those cattle have been preconditioned and stabilized, that will take about a month, maybe a month and a half, depending on the you know, how well the calves react to preconditioning. All right, if they pick up on the feed very well, and you know, they respond to the antibiotics very well, then I can vaccinate them more, you know, more rapidly, and I can take care of the you know, like these animals, they responded to the you know, the antibiotics very well. The one animal that I had that I was kind of like, you know, this animal looking like she kind of getting sick, she responded to the antibiotics very well. And all of them are eating the feed. All 4 of them are thoroughly eating feed. They're eating a lot of feed. And so their reaction to the preconditioning program is very good. And if that happens, I can probably precondition the animals within about 5 weeks. And so I will precondition another set of animals. That will give me 10 more animals. I have 10 animals at the lease property. I will take my 10 animals here and I will take them to the lease property. And then these animals, when I need the capital, right, you know, and effectively these animals are going to have to get force liquidated. All right, they will be force liquidated. You know, they're effectively going to end up in a situation where they are, you know, effectively getting too heavy. All right, they are going to start getting very big, and I will start having to force liquidate these animals if I do not liquidate them anyway. All right, and so, and then at that point, I will start liquidating animals, and I will start reinvesting the capital. And the big idea is to get myself to a 60 animals. Right now I have 38, and I will get myself to 60 within the next 2 months. When that happens, all right, when that happens, I will then take a look at what needs to get done, because when that happens, I will effectively be selling 10 animals every month. And if I sell 10 animals, that still leaves me with 50 animals at home, right? And those 50 animals, granted that I do my part, and granted that I continue to do my part in this whole thing, those 50 animals will have gone up in value, right? I can pay myself whatever I need. I can leverage against my assets. My debt load will be very low. My debt load will be very low, like under 40%. And that's just in the next 2 months. All right, you know, my debt, you know, the amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet is going to go very low, like under 35%. All right, under 40% within 2 months. And so, you know, I don't, you know, so that's, you know, so that's what I realistically, that's what I got cooking up. Okay, you know, this weekend I will go and meet the owner of the property. I will go meet them this weekend. They're going to bush hog the property. They're going to start clearing the brush off the property. I got a guy over there doing that, you know, this weekend. And effectively by Sunday, I will probably be taking the animals to the lease property. By Sunday, I will be taking animals to the lease property. I will be setting up the feed containers. I will be setting up the water containers. And then I will take my animals to the lease property. And then maybe even this Monday, I just go and I buy 3 or 4 more calves. I might just go and buy 3 or 4 more calves this Monday. And I will get the that will leave me with 10 animals on the lease property. That will leave me with 10 animals in the front yard, and that will leave me with 21 animals in the backyard. And once I have finished preconditioning the new animals, the new 10 animals, once I have finished preconditioning them, I will load them up and take them to the lease property. And once that has happened, and my farm has, you know, I have open space on my farm, I have open facilities, I will then start liquidating these animals and reinvesting the earnings until I have 60 animals. All right, I will take the money that I make when I liquidate these animals, and I will reinvest the earnings until I have 60 animals. And once I do that, I will figure out what I should do. All right, because when I do that, what's going to happen is that my debt load is going to fall below, it's going to fall below half. All right, it's going to be like under 35%. The amount of leverage that I have on my balance sheet will be like sub 35%. All right, and and before the end of the year, I would really like to take new lines of credit and re-leverage myself for the tax benefits. All right, I would like to do that. You know, that is something that I need to do. But you know, that's what I got cooking up. Okay, that's what I got coming up. All right, this weekend I'm gonna go and I got the bush hog man coming in. He's gonna clear some brush, And then on Sunday, I will load up. I will probably on Sunday I will load up a couple of feed troughs, and I'll go get a couple of water containers, and then I'll take about 10 cattle. I'll take about 10 of the smaller calves to the lease property. That will leave me with 7 animals in the front. Leave me with 7 animals in the front, and then I will bring home another 3 or 4 animals on Monday. That will put me at 10 animals back in the front. And when those 10 animals have been thoroughly preconditioned and are ready to go, I will load them up and I will take them to the lease property. And once I have done that, once I have preconditioned the next set of calves, these animals will probably be ready for market. And when these animals are ready for market, they will probably be about 800 pounds. All right, maybe a little bit more. They will be somewhere around 800 pounds. The animals that are going to market will be somewhere around 800 pounds. And I will take the capital that I make from selling these animals and reinvest the money back into my business until I hit 60 animals. And when I hit 60 animals, when do I believe that will happen? I believe that that will happen in just about 2 months. And when that happens, effectively what's going to end up happening is that I will sell 10 animals a month, and that will still leave me with 50 animals at home, and my debt load will be under 35%. The amount of debt that I have on my balance sheet will be under 35, under 40%. And so and then I got to figure out what I will do. But that gives me something to do for the next about a month and a half, for about the next 2 months. Okay, that gives me something to do for about the next month, 2 months. And then I'll figure out what I'm going to do at that point. And but that's that's what I got cooking up. Okay, I've taken a look at it, and that's what's gonna happen. And this Sunday or this Saturday, the bush hog man is gonna be out there. The bush hog man is gonna be out there. He's gonna start clearing the property. And so that's what I got. That's what I got happening. All right, the whole thing about it is, just to put things in, it just is what it is. All right, my balance sheet, my business is growing by more than 10% a month. Okay, my business is growing by more than 10% a month. And this whole thing about capital and this whole thing about money, and I talk about this, the big idea, and I've actually chosen to do it. All right, and the thing about me is that, like, if I, and here's a very realistic way to look at it. From what I have seen, all right, when my income went from, okay, so here's a very realistic way to look at it. Before I started my business, I was making $3,500 a month. I was making about $4,000 a month. That's before I started my business. And here is how I saw it. When I was making about $4,000 a month, that effectively paid for, like, if I wanted a truck, I could buy it. I could pay for my house, and I could pay for all of my food. I didn't have any money left over at the end of the month, but I was also, I was not homeless, but I was borderline homeless. That's what it looked like when I was at $4,000 a month. At $15,000 a month, when I hit $15,000 a month, effectively that was my indicator that I had a successful business. My business was actually producing enough money to where it was good for me to run the business. All right, I wasn't on some magical journey. I wasn't on some delusional fantasy. My business was making $15,000 a month. And that was my indicator that I had a successful business. And it was, the business was growing itself. But between $15,000 a month and $40,000 a month, nothing changed. Nothing. Legitimately, like, it's not like, oh my God, now I can go and just, nothing changed. Between $15,000 and $40,000 a month, actually, the only thing that changed was my business got bigger. My business got bigger. That was it. I didn't, it wasn't like, oh my God, now that I make $40,000 a month, now I can go on a magical journey. It wasn't like that. I talk, and this is the whole thing about this. Like, once you hit about $15,000 a month, everything just, in terms of price, in terms of the amount of money that anything costs, it's borderline negligible. It doesn't matter. As long as you have somewhat of a realistic idea for how you will invest a portion of your capital and you budget your money correctly, everything is just whatever. It doesn't matter. I can, anytime I go to the grocery store, I can buy whatever I want. All right, I pay for my mortgage and it doesn't matter to me. All right, one of my tires blow up on my trailer, so I replace all 4 of them. All right, you know, it doesn't matter. All right, you know, it doesn't. After about $15,000 a month, from what I have seen, after about $15,000 a month, the money doesn't do anything. Between $15,000 and $40,000 a month, the only thing that changed for me was my business got bigger. That was it. Nothing else changed. All right, it wasn't like, oh my God, now, you know, but nothing else changed. Legitimately. All right, like if I made $15,000 a month, and just to put things in perspective, like, you know, like if I decided to whatever, if I decided to intentionally just make $15,000 a month, and I reduce, and I quit growing the business, and I just started scraping money off of my business, I mean, you know, even then I could effectively do more or less everything that I'm doing, and it wouldn't matter. All right, after about $15,000 a month, the money doesn't really even do anything. In terms of what I saw, the only thing that changed between $15,000 and $40,000 a month was my business got bigger. That's it. That's legitimately it. And in all honesty, but between now, within the next 2 months, I will probably grow my balance sheet to about 60 animals, and that will actually reduce my debt load. I will actually expand my balance sheet, and my debt load is going to go below like 35%. All right, the amount of debt that I have on my balance sheet is going to go sub 35%. All right, at that point, you know, I would even, okay, you know, the whole thing about leveraging against the balance sheet, and using the methodology where, you know, you take the average weight of the animal, and then you appraise your balance sheet. Here's you know, and I actually ran this formula. And okay, so these animals, I have 21 animals right here, right? I have 21 animals in the back. One bucket of feed weighs 30 pounds, and I feed my animals about 12 buckets a day. If I run the calculation, right, how do I do that? So I take my 30 pounds a bucket, and I multiply that by 12. That gives me 360. I take the 360 and then I divide it by 21, and when I do that, it turns out to be 17.15. I take that 17.15 and I multiply it by 30 and 33. And when I do that, what does it come out to be? It's about 550 pounds. All right, it comes out to be about 550, somewhere between you know, it's about 550. And that's what I've been saying, right? Even when I eyeball it, when I just take a look at it, that's what I estimated, right? Even, you know, and I've used the, you know, the whole there was another way, you know, and you know, me, when I first started this business, I used to physically measure the animals. Right, I used to physically measure the animals to get a rough estimate on their weight, and I'm pretty good with the rough estimate on their weights. All right, I'm pretty good with it. I mean, like, if I take a look at an animal, I can tell you about what the animal weighs. All right, you know, I can tell you about what the animal weighs. You know, like this one right here, probably, you know, probably about maybe about 500. Right, this one right here probably about 450. That one right there probably about 550. Right, the red one that's next to him probably about 600, right, 6 1/4, something like that. You know, I'm pretty good at this. All right, I'm pretty good at this. Am I like a scale? No, I'm not. But you know, I can pretty much tell you. All right, I can pretty much tell you, you know, within reasonable estimate what the animals weigh. And you know, but that's what I've been saying, right? I think that the average weight of my herd right now is about 550, right? I've been saying that, and but if I run the formula, that's about what it comes out to be. I take 12 buckets of feed. Each bucket weighs 30 pounds. I multiply that together. That gives me 360. I divide it by the number of animals that I have, 21. That gives me 17.15. And then I multiply that 17.15 effectively by 31.5. All right, multiply it by 31.5, and the average weight of my animal is about 550 pounds. All right, and so, you know, but you know, that's effectively it is what it is. But I will have animals at 800 pounds. I would be, well, you know, I am going to have animals at 800 pounds within 2 months. All right, I will have animals ready for liquidation. And the whole idea of me liquidating, granted that I'm not force liquidating, like if my animals get too big, if my animals get too large, then I will have to liquidate. But granted that until that happens, I will only liquidate enough animals until I have the money that I need. I only pay myself what I need, right? I talk about this. There is no reason to sit on, you know, the whole idea of sitting on money. And, you know, it's not a good idea. All right, money doesn't do anything. And at the end of the day, money's negligible, right? Money's negligible. It doesn't matter. Money doesn't do anything. Like if you have 25 grand, if you have 50 grand in your bank account, that 50 grand in your bank account will effectively be 50 grand forever. All right. And if anything, in all reality, and I've spoken about the expansion of the monetary base, that's one of the biggest economic factors that I see in the world, right? In terms of in terms of how this whole thing works, I believe that an expansion of the monetary base is going to be, a major factor in the economic situation that we are currently involved in. And the whole thing about it, and I talked about this yesterday, there is a very realistic possibility that we enter an era of economic struggle. And this has happened to many people in the past. We are not the first people to enter economic struggle. We are not the first. It's happened many times in the past. If you and this is a very good way to put it. If you watch an interview on somebody that was born during the Great Depression, they effectively lived in the Great Depression their entire life. Their entire life. They were in the Great Depression when they were 2 years old. They were in the Great Depression when they were 5 years old. And by the time they were 60, the Great Depression was over. Legitimately, it happens to a lot of people. All right, it's happened a lot. It happens all the time. And I am just saying we are probably entering a situation where something like that, but it will probably be due to inflation of the economy. All right, it will probably be due to inflation of assets. And nobody wants to enter, nobody wants to, and even me, like I don't want to think about 15% of the population of America being absolutely devastated in the next 50 years. I don't want that to happen. I mean, who would want that to happen, right? I mean, I don't want to see 20%. I don't want, and it'll probably be even more, because here's the thing. It's like, even if you do make it by, you have to, and this is a very realistic way to look at it. 20 years ago, if you made $3,000 a month, 15 years ago, if you made $3,000 a month, you could still have been middle class. Your rent was probably $700 a month. Your rent was probably $600 a month, right? You could go and buy yourself a brand new car, and that brand new car was going to be $200 or $300 a month, right? And that would still leave you with like $2,000 a month to do whatever the heck it is that, you could pay for your insurance, and you could pay for whatever, right? And you still had some money. But nowadays, if you make $3,000 a month, you're probably homeless. You probably can't even afford rent and a car. You probably can't. And but that's a very realistic way to look at it. All right, in the future, you may need $5,000 a month just to be lower middle class, barely make enough to even keep a roof over your head. That might happen. All right, that is legitimately what may be happening over the next 20 years. Right, I've spoken about this. If your rent right now is $1,000 a month, in 10 years, your rent for the exact same apartment may be $1,200 a month. It might even be $1,400. All right, and I've spoken about, the whole idea, and I used Coca-Cola as an example of this, right? Because Coca-Cola is a very realistic idea of a product, and I used beef for an example of this too, right? I use T-bone steak as an example of this. There is a very realistic possibility that, Coca-Cola, the exact same Coca-Cola, if you buy it for $1 today, it may legitimately be $1.25. It may have inflated 25% in the next 10 years. If you are paying $1,000 a month for your apartment, you may be paying $1,250 in the next 10 years. If you are paying $10 for a ribeye steak, for a pound of ribeye steak, you may be paying $12.50. All right, in the next 10 years. All right, this is legitimately what I see happening. All right, and do I want to see 75% of the entire U.S. population absolutely devastated financially? No, I don't. Who would want to see that? But that's effectively what's going to happen. Why? Because effectively 90% of the population of America makes under $90,000 a year. Effectively, almost everybody makes under 90 grand. Almost everybody. All right, and if the cost of living goes up, if there is broader inflation in the economic system, then effectively 90% of the population of America effectively gets shifted downwards. Absolutely devastated. All right, that is legitimately what might be happening. And to escape this, right, I've spoken about this, I am one of the very few people's, okay, and I've talked about this, and I'm not looking to float my own boat. And I'm not bragging about it. At the end of the day, it just is what it is. And I'm just, I have the right to speak my belief. All right, and God knows that I'm not a malicious person. God knows that I'm not doing this to be a horrible person. All right, God knows it. And I have the right to speak my thoughts. Even when I look at it, when I take a look at somebody, all right, even if they have money, it doesn't mean that, they could be an idiot with money, right? I've spoken about this. Even when you have somebody who has some money, they might legitimately still be an idiot with money. They might just be an idiot that has some money. The clear indicator of somebody who is actually good with money is what? They are able to grow the money systematically. That's the only way, from what I have seen. Because the whole idea of working for money, which is good, right? You should be working. I work all the time. I work 7 days a week, right? I work. This doesn't just run itself. My business doesn't run itself. My business didn't just appear out of thin air by itself. I started this business and I run this business effectively by myself 7 days a week. So, the whole thing about, in terms of a reality situation, even, I am somebody who actually knows how to do this. I am very good with money, right? Like, the thing about me is that I am so good with money that if I only had 5 grand, I could turn that 5 grand into 100 grand within, it would be like less than 15 months. And I would do that with a 100% guarantee. That's how good I am with money. I am extremely good with it. I can actually systematically grow money. And in terms of that skill set, in terms of actually being able to do that, even from everybody that I have looked through, from everybody, even just gone through people and looked at what they have to say and what they have to say and everything. And even when I've looked through, I don't know, countless people, it's like less than 5 people that legitimately, it's like when you listen to them talk about money, they are talking about growing money via assets. It's less than 5 and I'm one of them. Because it's like, oh my God, you just need to change your mindset and you just need, all of that is BS, all right? They're selling you a course, BS. All right, the only way that I have seen to systematically make money, large amounts of legitimate money, the only way that I have personally seen it is to take your money and make a positive return on your capital. That's the only way that I've seen it. And if I listen to somebody speaking about their whatever, if I listen to somebody speaking about their, whatever it is, right? The way that they made their money and how they would make money. If they are not discussing assets, systematically, making money via assets, that person is not very good with money. They may be good at something else. They may be good at marketing, right? They may be good at marketing. They may be good at something else, right? They may be good at, marketing is a big one. They may just have good marketing. Me, I may have horrible marketing, but I make massive quantities of money. I am systematically very good at making money, right? I may have horrible marketing, but I don't care. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. I've always, and I see it as a good thing, because you have to understand, like, if you watch somebody, and I've always said that the worst thing that you can do as a poor person is find other poor people and share your ideas with other poor people. Why? Because you'll start validating each other. And next thing you know, you're all sitting there agreeing with each other and you're all effectively all morons. That's the worst thing that you can do when you're a poor person, right? The whole idea of you can choose your friends, but you cannot choose your family, right? You can choose your friends. Why would you choose to be friends with a bunch of poor people? All right, the worst thing that you can do when you're poor is hang around other poor people. The worst thing. Because you will all effectively end up dragging each other down and being poor forever. That is the worst thing that you can do as a poor person. That, like, the worst. It doesn't get any worse than that. Next thing you know, you're all validating each other. You're all, you're in some moron megazord. Nobody's getting anywhere their entire life. Congratulations. All right, and the whole thing, and in terms of legitimately making money, like when I listen to somebody make money, when I listen to somebody's ideas about money, if they are not discussing assets and making returns on capital, making returns on assets, I can almost guarantee you that this individual is not very good with money. They may be good at something else, but they're not very good with money. I am very good with money. All right, that's the one thing, that's one of the things that I got going for me. And the whole thing about it is, and when I speak about this stuff, it's like I would take it with the idea, like this, this is a, in a way, it's a good thing. I see it as a good thing because I don't want anything from anybody. I don't care to be your friend. I don't want anything from anybody. I don't want money from anybody. I don't want anything from anybody. If I had nothing, I could redo everything in 30 seconds. All right, like, when it comes to farming, I may legitimately be the best in the world at it. I make a massive sum of money. I don't want anything from anybody. Legitimately, I don't want to be your friend. I don't want your validation. I don't want your money. I don't sell courses, nothing. I don't want anything from anybody. Zero, none, nothing. From anybody, it doesn't matter. I don't want anything from anybody. I have plenty of money. The amount of money that I'm making is skyrocketing upwards. All right, I don't have, I'm not some, loser bum, right? I'm not like oh my God, well, my life's a magical journey and I fell out of heaven, a 7, right? I don't want anything from anybody, legitimately nothing. And, and at the end of the day, it is what it is. All right. I see that as a good thing because a lot of times when it's like when you have like a pathetic little gremlin, especially if they find out, and this is also, like if they find out that you make a large amount of money, like if, a lot of times, a person maybe whatever, A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, say they're a good person and, oh my God, I want to be your friend and everything. But then the moment they realize that I make a massive sum of money, it's like now's my chance to like steal from, now's my chance to like come up with some worthless scheme to try and make some money, and it's like, have fun dying poor. All right, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it just is what it is. All right, you'd be amazed by the kind of stuff that I see. You'd be amazed. All right, and at the end of the day, just it's whatever to me. But it is what it is. When I see money, the whole thing about, and this is my golden indicator. This is my golden indicator to see if anybody, it's like if you look at somebody and eventually they will discuss money. Almost everybody discusses money. Everybody. It doesn't matter how they do it. They talk about their assets or whatever asset that they have. When somebody discusses making money or whatever it may be, if they are not talking about positive returns on their capital and a good asset, right? Don't touch a bad asset with a 50-foot pole. I don't buy bad assets. Why? Don't ever buy a bad asset. If you buy a bad asset, you have fun with that. Don't ever buy a bad asset. I talk about this all the time. Don't buy a bad asset. All right, and if, like me, it's whatever, like, because everyone effectively always discusses money, at some point, everyone does. And if they're not talking about, any kind of a positive return, if they don't have some kind of a good quality asset, if they're not, whatever, about it, then, that's a clear indicator that the person is not good with money. They're not good with money. And in terms of being very good, and I'm not looking to put myself in the same, tier, because Warren Buffett, I'm closer to, Warren Buffett makes drastically more money than me. All right. And I have seen other people that make money and things like this, and, and it is what it is. And and at the end of the day, when you take a look at the equitable evaluation of my business, and, in all honesty, and the amount of money that I make, it puts me in the multi-millionaire category, right? It does. And I don't worry about money. I don't worry about money forever. I'm not worried about it at all, 0%. If I legitimately need more money, I will just pay myself more. All right. I don't have some massive spending problem or anything. And, the whole thing about this is, and, with everything, in terms of legitimately being good with money, I don't even know more, it's less than 5 people. Less than 5. And I'm sure that there are more out there that I have not met, that I have not seen. But as far as I know, it's less than 5. It's less than 5, and I'm one of them. Like, legitimately, the thing about being good with money and growing, and the whole idea of growing capital via assets, and, and just to put things in a realistic perspective, if I had 5 grand, I could turn that 5 grand into 100 grand with a 100% guarantee in it would be like less than 15 months. I would 100% guarantee it. All right. I don't, and in terms of that, like, legitimately, making money with money, that's like the ultimate indicator of whether, like, because I've already talked about the whole idea of working for money. Working for money is good, right? You should be working. Like me, I work, right? This business does not run itself. The cattle don't buy themselves, right? These lease properties don't find themselves, right? The old saying, this money don't make itself, right? This money doesn't make itself, right? I mean, I work on this thing. I'm effectively my own employee, right? I'm my only employee, right? I work. That's important. Right? But what you do with the money after you work for the money is more important than what you do, in terms of the work. It's more important with what you do with the money. Me, I take all of my capital and I invest it into a tax deductible asset, right? I take all of my money and I buy a tax deductible asset with that money. I do that with the intentions of making a positive return on my capital. Once I have invested my capital, I will even leverage against my balance sheet. And when I do that, I get more tax benefits and I can appreciate more assets at the same time. That's what I do with my money. And at the end of the day, that's what makes me such a massive sum of money. That, and just to put things, and just to give you a realistic idea of what I'm going to do over the next 2 months, what direction am I headed? Over the next 2 months, I will grow my balance sheet to 60%, I will grow my balance sheet to 60 animals, and I will reduce my debt load to under 35% at the same time. All right, that's what I will accomplish over the next 2 months. I will reduce my debt burdens to under 35%, to under 40%, and I will grow my balance sheet to 60 animals. Once I have done that, I will take a look at what I have going on, and then I'll determine what I should do. But that is what I will do over the next 2 months. I will grow my balance sheet and reduce my debt load at the same time. I'll actually increase, and then, by the end of the year, I really need to look into, re-leveraging against my balance sheet. I really need to re-leverage against my assets. If I don't do that, right, I'll effectively be stuck paying, a significant amount of money in taxes. And so that's the situation that I'm in. That's what I'm doing with my capital. And in terms of the amount of money how much money do I make in terms of just a raw number? Like, if I were to just say, if I were to legitimately just go all cash at the end of the year and hold on to the money, how much money do I think I will make this year? It'll be just over $500,000. It'll be just over $500,000. All right. And very realistically, I'll be going over $1 million very quickly. All right. I'll actually end up going over $1 million next year. I would be willing to guarantee it. And if something happens along the way, if something happens, I will say so. All right, but I would anticipate that by the end of the year, my income for the year will be just over $500,000. By next year, my income will go over $1 million a year. All right, that's what I reasonably anticipate. And and if something happens along the way, if something happens that causes that to change, I will say so. There is a very realistic possibility that my income goes over $2 million next year. All right, my income may even go over $2 million a year next year. It might. But I will be growing my business. I will be growing my business, and that is how I will do it. I will take the 10 animals that I have in the front yard that are about 350 pounds. I will take them over to the lease property. I will go and buy 3 or 4 more animals. That will put another 10 animals in the front yard. Once those 10 animals have been preconditioned, it will take about a month, maybe about 5 weeks. I will take those animals over to the lease property. That leaves 20 animals at the lease property, and that leaves me with 21 animals here. These 21 animals, I will have animals that are 800 pounds at that point. And when I start liquidating these animals, I will use the money that I make, and I won't take any debt. I'm still not using any debt. I will just take the money that I make and reinvest it into my business, and I will grow my balance sheet to 60 animals. All right, I will grow my balance sheet to 60 animals. And when I am at 60 animals, my debt load will probably be under 35 or 40%. It will be. Not probably, it will be. It will be under 35 to 40%. All right, and at that point, I would even have to consider leveraging against my assets, but I don't want to leverage against my assets until after I've taken my credit lines. All right, I really want to redo my credit lines. I really want bigger credit lines. I really need bigger loans. So until I redo my credit lines, I will not be using leverage. But I need to be using leverage before the end of the year. All right, and and the amount of money that I make will be absolutely drastic. It will be absolutely astronomical. My earnings are compounding. All right, I may legit, my income may legitimately end the year like this year my income is already it's going to end up over $500,000. It's going to be over $500,000. It is going to be over $500,000. And well, I'm not going to say my income, right? My income, because income is an art. It's like this ambiguous thing, all right? Because for me to determine how much money I made, I would have to think about liquidating all of my assets and then going straight cash, right? That's what I would have to consider doing. And why would I do that? But for me to truly understand how much money I make, that is what would need to happen. I would have to liquidate all of my assets and then just sit on cash. And if I did, that, that would be a stupid thing to do, right? That would not be very intelligent. Why would I do that? The money's not going to do anything, and I'm going to have to pay a third of it in taxes, right? But my income will, the amount of money that I made for the year will end up just over $500,000. It'll end up just over $500,000. All right, and by next year, my income will end up, I may even end up, going close to $2 million by next year. All right, my income is skyrocketing upwards. All right, and granted that I continue to just do it, then I will make more money. And I have a very realistic idea for how I will do this, right? Take my animals in the front yard to the lease property, precondition 3 or 4 more animals with the 7 animals that I have left. Take the 10 animals take the next 10 animals to the lease property. These animals back here at that point will be about 800 pounds. I will have 800-pound animals back here, and I will start liquidating at 800. And when I liquidate at 800 and I reinvest the capital and I buy them, at about 225 pounds, right, then I will be able to expand my balance sheet. And once my balance sheet gets to about 60 animals, once my balance sheet is at 60 animals, I will have increased, the size of my herd, and my debt load will have gone down. All right, my debt load will be at about half. My debt load will be about a 30-40%, 35-40%. All right, that's what's going to happen. All right, that's the direction that I'm going. All right.